commission of inquiry.
Honorable KJ, you're
These things will come.
Welcome back to Daybreak. Well, we took a break, but Honorable Kerry has been telling us a few things. Remember the questions I was asking? He refused to answer me on air, but he said a few things during the break. I cannot tell you what he said. He has to say it by himself. I want us to take a look at the feedback that has been coming to us via Twitter, Citizen TV Kenya. At Sam Gituku, hashtag to use is Daybreak, in as far as that very divisive conversation is. Reverend Harry Kosgei is saying that this year has been a lot of ups and downs. That God intervened himself in many situations, especially during the elections. Was it not for God, I don't know how Kenya could be now. Achiri Mungu aitu Mungu. God bless. Remy Butia, Cherera 4 failed to promote public confidence in the office they held through their actions. Article 251 of the Constitution states that Parliament will consider the petitions and send to the President to form a tribunal to investigate the commissioners. What else? Bobo Tieno. Kenyans are tied up with many things, maybe they are tired, with many things which need to be addressed, but not public rallies or demonstrations. Taking this route, Azimio leaders are losing it as official opposition. Amaganga, you say that IBC drama is pure politics. If it was Azimio, I'm sure Chebukati and team would be in custody as you speak, with an ongoing political interrogation and then charged with treason. It's the same thing we're witnessing at the moment. Okay. LJ Sindani, the truth of the matter is that the IBC commissioners were divided into two groups, pro-Ruto group, then pro-Chebukati group. No, pro-Ruto group, Ruto group, Chebukati, and the other two, pro-Raila, Cherera. What are you saying? If there's any inquiry on IBC commissioners, all of them should be investigated. Now, the Chebukati 3, that is Wafula Chebukati, Abdi Gulia, and Boya Molu, they are retiring on January 17th. There's a process of recruiting new commissioners. But anyway, there was a petition before the National Assembly to remove the 3. Directions are yet to come, and we continue to wait. Anyway, on matters Hustler Fund, we know that as of yesterday, more than 3 billion shillings had already been borrowed, and savings had been more than 200 million shillings. I'll be getting the figures from the sources that we have shortly. But Fred, when you look at this was a pre-election promise. I remember having arguments and discussions here in studio of what promise was practical, what was not. When you look at what has been implemented, when you look at it objectively, do you see it is a route to fulfilling that promise, and what are the concerns from the people that you've heard? I don't know whether you're one of the targeted beneficiaries.
I wouldn't want to say that I'm a hustler by political definition, but as Mbui said, anyone who is struggling to put food on the table and to do genuine and legal work, then that person qualifies. But I think Ruto's government did promise. Our problem as Kenyans has been that, you know, some of these promises, they keep on mutating. During the rallies, KJ and Honorable Koechia and their boss promised Kenyans that they'll give those hustlers a grant. Today, it has mutated to a loan, then it mutated to a loan with a lower interest, then it mutated to a loan to another extended interest. Then today, it is something that looks like a Fuliza, while they demonize Fuliza, which some Kenyans have really enjoyed. Their limit is going to 18, 20,000, and that's helpful to sustain their lives. I strongly believe that President Ruto's government is playing a very dangerous PR with this Hustler Fund. While they have launched it and they can give numbers, I've seen every day they update that 3 million, 4 million, but what are the limits that the hustlers can access? Majority of the people who are accessing this fund are accessing the bare minimum, 500 shillings, that they can barely use to start a business. Because the ultimate reason of this was to help people sustain their lives. And the president recently said that the more you borrow and pay promptly, the more you increase your limit. So I'm asking myself, for how long are you going to borrow 500 to get to a limit of 50 million so that you can start a proper business that can sustain you at this time of hard economic times?
So you think the amounts are too low?
I think, in my view, I think the amounts are too low. And the other thing is, you see, it was a promise. But the president and his team did make so many promises that they're yet to fulfill. Yeah. One of the issues that they raised is forming a quasi-judicial, a quasi-commission of inquiry.
Judicial commission.
Yeah, exactly. Within 30 days to deal with state capture. We have not seen it. Today, we are actually seeing state capture proper. If you listen to some of the statements that they make, you can actually tell how they are asserting authority. Just the issue of the commissioners who are now being told to go. You can see the capture. The members of parliament said that they are going after the provincial administration. They have said that anyone who was going against their way must go. That is state capture, in our view. So we think that some of these promises that Kenya Kwanza made, they were campaign promises, but they were not achievable. I would want to see a government that live to the true spirit of his promises and deliver. The reason why Azimio One Kenya is converging is because of some of these failed promises. They promised that they lower the cost of living. Immediately, they get into office. Today, the cost of living is still high. They promised that they'll get Kenyans unga at the cost of 70 shillings. Today, unga is still retailing at 280. They promised that they will, 280, 285.
Which unga?
There's unga. Air hostess, it is 285. If you walk into the supermarket across the road, you'll see that. There's one at 185. There's one at 92. That is, it's still high. What I'm saying is they did promise that you'll go at below 100. Today, we are still having it above 100. That is a promise that has failed. They did promise that when they put down the Bible, then they will deal with the cartels. We have seen the re-emergence of cartels. In fact, they are even emboldened today. And I think that a public consultation is important. You ask Honorable Mbuya a question, what do they do, or what Azimio will do with the results or the outcome of the public consultation? You know, public consultation, Sam, is a constitutional principle. And members of the public are allowed to consult on how they are governed. One of the issues that we have failed in this country is to incorporate the views of the public in how they are governed. And I think Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Gideon Moi, Martha Karua, and the entire Azimio, and including former President Uhuru Kenyatta, must engage the public and ask them, how do you see this government promise?
Fred, how did you go there? We were talking about Hustler Fund.
Because Hustler Fund is a promise. It's a campaign promise. And it has failed. I'm talking about promises that have failed.
What do you mean it's failed? I mean, the borrowings are now...
It has failed. I can repeat, it has failed because that is not what the hustlers expected. The hustlers expected to get money that is substantial enough to start a business. Today, they are being given 500 shillings that they'll use at the
But let me ask you, Fred, because it's easy to speak, but when you speak to the people that are borrowing, some of them that you spoke to, I think, on Sunday, there are those that you say, I borrow to go and buy some food for my household. There are those that you say, I use the little money to buy some stock. If 4.4 billion shillings has so far been borrowed, is that failure?
No. What I'm saying, on the individual level, my expectation, if I'm a hustler, is to get money that I can walk out at my house, go and buy stuff that I can sell and recoup and pay back. Today, Sam, and I'm telling you, you have seen that online, majority of the recipients of this fund are getting a very bare minimum limit. And that one is making them struggle. They are not able to start their lives. That's what I'm saying.
I hear you, Fred. And Honorable Mbowe, what are the concerns of your constituents in the amounts, but also the success rate in as far as accessing the money is concerned? Sorry?
You've gone back to Mbuya again.
No, you have to quite the There is no real order. But anyway, thank you, Sam. Sam, I think on the matter of Hustler Fund, there's so much that comes to question, but I think it's important to realize that what was happening during campaigns was what we call, it was a courtship period. Everyone was courting the public. And there are some people who know how to get wives. They can lie a lot. They'll promise them heaven on earth. A storied building, I don't know, a Mercedes vehicle. And when they marry them, they go and find they live in a hut, grass thatched. So I think, in my opinion, I think Kenya Kwanza were very good during that period. Because what they told the Mamamboga, Boda Boda, whom they completely talked about in every single rally, is that they'll change their lives, they'll be able to give them money to uplift their standards of living. I've looked at what has happened. I know someone who said they wanted to start a barber shop. What they got was enough money to do a haircut. Another one wanted to do a restaurant. What they got was enough money to go and buy lunch. Another one wanted to buy a boda boda. What they got was enough money for fare.
Okay, away from the memes, what are your constituents saying?
The thing is that there are two things that come to place. One is the amount. I think it needs to come out clear that what we are getting now as a Hustler Fund is really not the promise that was given, because the promise was for setting up business. What is happening is that there is an introduction of a fund that is supposed to I think, replace the Fuliza arrangement, so that now the government becomes the beneficiary of the interest that Safaricom has been getting. So that's, the government is going into competition with private business in this country, which I think, in my opinion, is wrong. Okay. Of course, the issue of interest was clearly stated that it was going to be a grant. Now, suddenly, there is no issue of grant. It is now a loan. And people are expected to pay that money back plus interest. The third issue is the part where they have said that they are taking away part of this money. So you borrow this money, you will even pay it, but part of it is taken and is put aside for, I think, savings. Now, my fear on that is that because when you look at the total amount of money that eventually will be in circulation, so a lot of money will also go into that arrangement for savings. That is the area where a lot of those wheeler dealers are waiting for, because that money is going to end up in people's pockets. You know what happened, and that's what I'm scared about. You remember what happened on the days of YK92. YK92 days, people actually looted NSSF. Because NSSF, what was happening is that the people were being given plots of land by government, and NSSF was being forced to buy those pieces of land so that the money now goes to people's pockets. And NSSF ends up with land that was completely, they couldn't even use it. They couldn't use it for anything valuable. So I think my worry is that once we start building those savings, they'll be open to abuse, and that's my concern. Okay,
and of course we know that based on the frequently asked questions that were released by the ministry that is responsible, they said that once you borrow, 5% of what you're borrowing will go to savings, 30% of that in short-term savings, and 70% to pension. That means long-term savings. And so far, according to the figures we have, 225 million shillings have been saved. That would mean that 70% is at 157 million that has gone to savings. And Honorable Koech, so when you listen to all this, do you first of all know the source of this money? Because Parliament is yet to appropriate resources to the Hustler Fund. So whatever money is being borrowed, where is it coming from?
What question is that, Sam? Has KRA stopped collecting revenue? It was approved by the cabinet. The regulations were equally approved by the Treasury. And
yes, the regulations are approved by the National Assembly.
It is being funded. It is being funded from the National Treasury.
How do you do that? Because the regulations say that Parliament shall appropriate up to 50 billion shillings to the fund. That hasn't come. But
there is also a section that allows the government, actually the CS, I'm just trying to look for that particular section so you understand. But as I'm looking for it, let me just tell you that, first of all, this Hustler Fund is a revolution. And that is why, even listening to Fred, he still does not understand how this thing operates. Let me just give him a bit of education about Hustler Fund. And it should take time before critiquing to also interact with exactly what Hustler Fund is going to do. The product that has been launched is to give loans from 500 to 50,000. That is the first line of the product of the Hustler Fund. This is a game changer. That today, in fact, I've just received a message. I'd requested the CS responsible to send me the consumption as at last night. By the end of the day yesterday. Do you know, yesterday alone, 1 billion shillings was sent to new customers of Hustler Fund. By the close of yesterday, what had been dispersed was 4.5 billion Kenya shillings. Total repayment was 263 million. Customers that we already have in is 11,985,000. Savings is 225 million. People, repeat customers that are already are sending back the money by yesterday was 277,000. It is a game changer. So what happens is that if you borrow 500 shillings and you repay immediately, then you again earn yourself, you graduate. Yeah, you go up and shortly you'll get up to 50,000. 500 shillings changes so much. Using the Deputy President's example of a Mutura seller, 500 shillings is enough stock for 3 days to do the business of Mutura. There's a lot of money in circulation out there. It is an economic revolution, and it will change. And the fact that one of our campaign pledge has been fulfilled within the first 100 days is equally a serious thing. That the president has demonstrated that he is keen and has a lot of vigor to, first of all, fulfill his campaign pledges. This thing, it will change. Okay,
fine, I hear you, but answer my question. What is the source of these funds? Because Parliament is yet to appropriate money. If you don't have an answer, that's fine, but also tell me, how are you managing the savings? Because 225 million shillings is somewhere.
I'll answer your question. I was just trying to get the particular article. Article 233 of the Constitution, Sam, allows the CS Treasury to spend any money towards settling fund without appropriation by Parliament where need has arisen for expenditure for a purpose for which no amount has been appropriated. Okay, that is Article 223.
So how much money has he allowed to be spent?
Of the Constitution. Approval of Parliament for any spending under Article 233 must be sought in 2 months of the withdrawal. So CS Treasury has until 30th of January 2023, after the House resumes, for approval of the Hustler Fund spending. We shall be done within 2 weeks. So we're perfectly
So how much money has he cleared to be spent on this?
I do not know expressly at this point how much money is supposed to be allocated, but first of all, that the architecture and constitutionally it is okay, I do not find any reason why that should still be the question.
You know, the reason I'm asking that question, you dismissed the question at the start, but I asked that question because you've tried to look for answers we can't get, even from the ministry responsible. But all the same, the savings, 225 million shillings, you say, 157 being 70% for long-term savings, which is in pension.
Yeah.
Who is managing this? So that you say, because we have had challenges, management of public funds. Who is saying that this can only be used in a certain manner, not in a certain manner?
Of the savings?
Yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of legislation now and that is now where we all must come in. It's not about a one-stop shop. This is a product that has been developed. There are so many things that are being put in place to also make it better, to make this product better. To me, my concern as at this point is Hustler Fund a revolutionary? Is it helping people out there? Is it helping the hustlers? Are the people who are buying Mutura, are the Mamambogas now getting a product that we have promised them during the campaign? My answer is yes, they have it. You've seen the uptake. It is going up to 11 million of the 28 million population. We're actually slightly half of the targeted population in disbursement. I can tell you that consumption is going to change this country. For me, I find the product very good.
Okay.
It's already been consumed. And we are going to farm up on other legislation to make sure that we have a watertight legislation that protects not only the pension, but the product, so that it can be used for longer.
Work in progress, you sound to suggest. Honorable Kiari, he says that the repayment so far is 263. We had figures of up to 250 million shillings, but it looks like it's changing by the minute. How do we make this sustainable? And soon, next week on Thursday or Friday, actually Thursday, we should see, no, Wednesday next week, we should see the lapse of the first 14 days, meaning that the loans that were taken on day one should mature at that time. How do we make it sustainable despite the concerns that people, because of the easy terms, there are people that may default and nothing much will happen to them?
We've got to think what it is that informed the formation of the Hustler Fund. Before this government came into office, there were 4 million Kenyans listed on CRB. What that tells you is that there is a need for affordable credit in this country. Everyone criticizing the Hustler Fund are not users and are not beneficiaries of the Hustler Fund. 11 million Kenyans who are using this Hustler Fund are not complaining. In fact, the people who are complaining loudest are the people who would want this plan to fail. Because if it fails, they get an opportunity to poke holes on the performance of this government. The truth of the matter is that there was a need for affordable credit to hustlers. One of the biggest critiques I've had is that 500 shillings is very little. I've had experience working for some banks that have been built on the back of hustlers. And some of the managers at these banks will tell you that there are Kenyans who walk into a banking hall in the morning and borrow 700 shillings and repay with interest in the evening. Now, what the Hustler Fund has come to do is to remedy a malady where there have been some very predatory lenders who impose impossible interests on credit. The Hustler Fund has stepped in, and in a few days, you can see it is offering a solution that Kenyans are ready to uptake. Now, the biggest revolution, and you have said it, Honorable Koech has said it, is that it also starts Kenyans on a way to saving. Any country that is not saving is going to be a slave of credit borrowed from people who are saving. There are countries who are saving up to 55% of their GDP. We're talking about the Japans of this world, the Chinas of this world, and these are the people who we are borrowing from. Now, the Hustler Fund, as the Honorable Koech has said, is a massive, massive revolution. And what we would ask these critics of the Hustler Fund to do is first to just have a sit down and listen in. It is on record. It is in your domain, Sam, on your platforms. They can go and listen to the proceedings of the launch of the Hustler Fund. And if they listened through these proceedings, some of these questions that are being asked, some of which are obvious, would be answered to them. Then we would move on to the next step, which would be to ask, how can we better what is already working at the moment? Hustler Fund, if you think about it, is actually a saving grace to that Kenyan who had been blacklisted by CRB. Even the defaulters who have been criminalized because borrowing in Kenya had become a criminal enterprise, today have a saving grace in the Hustler Fund, where if you borrow diligently, borrow your 500, you are able to improve your credit scoring to a place where you will be able to, at some point, be able to borrow up to 50,000 Kenya shillings. Now, the people who are critiquing the administration of this fund need to remember that there is not a single shilling that is being disbursed in cash. We're in a digital era, and we are told anything that happens digitally has a digital footprint. So much so that every single shilling that is disbursed through the Hustler Fund is accountable for through systems that exist, that can be audited, that can be monitored, that can be evaluated. So these people who are rushing to talk about maladministration of the fund need to just take time and understand what the Hustler Fund is all about.
Maladministration of the fund?
No, you're saying that, no, not yourself, the critics are saying that, oh, we might run into a situation, the Honorable Mbui is trying to refer us to the era of, who did you refer us to? The era of?
How that money, the one that is being saved is going to be managed?
Of course, you're in Parliament.
It's not been discussed.
You shall be part of forming. You shall be part of forming how this is done, and you will have an opportunity.
Kerry, don't you find that interesting that you have a facility existent without the supporting legislation?
I've just read
the launch did not even happen before.
You just said, no, listen to what I'm saying. You
said
that he will be in Parliament.
The Honorable Mbui is in Parliament. And one of the roles that he has been given by the Constitution is oversight. He has every opportunity, a very privileged opportunity, to oversight the administration of this fund.
He's asking you a question about how the management of the savings will be.
That exists. He was no, he was not in Parliament. He took some orders from above and walked out of Parliament.
No, it's not about the laws were being It's about passed. The fund and the Kenyans.
The laws exist.
How will the savings be?
The launch did not happen until those laws were passed. In
how
fact,
will the savings be?
The Hustler Fund would have been launched much earlier. It is only after the regulations were passed in Parliament that the actual launch happened. And this is a fact, Sam. Go check.
Honorable Kerry, I've read the regulations.
Yes.
What I'm asking is, how will the savings be managed? Because the regulations say there will be a board and the chair will be appointed by the president.
Yes.
There's no board as of today.
So does that stop?
Just hold on. The law says there should be a secretariat. That secretariat is not existent because the chief executive officer is yet to be recruited by the board, which is yet to be recruited.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is, yes, the Hustler Fund is continuing because it's being borrowed and given out through the digital platforms. But how do you manage those savings, which requires a proper team to be overseeing that management?
Sam, as we speak, the provisions that are provided for in the regulations that were passed in Parliament are sufficient to run the fund. What will happen, Sam, is that after these savings, after I, as a borrower, have saved and also contributed to my pension, I can determine what I do with my saving as a Kenyan. This is not money that belongs to the state or belongs to some private entity. The Hustler Fund is fully administrated from your phone.
Can I access what I've saved in the pension?
You, as a borrower, will even know how much you have saved. It is you.
I'll know how much I've saved.
Yes.
But how do I access it? And I'm asking because you have resources, you have regulations that have to be implemented by a certain agency.
Yes.
Those agencies are not existent.
What I am saying is that the formation of that board does not stop the proper operation of this fund. Where the fund sits is not a place where it will disappear into thin air. It has a digital footprint.
So who is managing it? That's what I'm asking.
It is self-managing. It is self-operating. That is why even the interest is so low. Who manages Fuliza, for example? Remember, we're in an age where you are able to go to a USSD code, Sam, and this is very serious, Sam. You will type *254#.
Yes.
And the system itself is an automated system that is able to first check your credit rating. After checking your credit rating, is able to disburse the limit at which you're able to borrow. And it sits on a platform. Now, the administration of it, just as any mobile domiciled lending happens, is automated. And the best thing about it is that it is digital, and I keep repeating this.
Which is fine.
Yes, so as it sits,
I don't know
the regulations that we have and the systems that exist digitally, we are not held back into whether it should be administrated or not. And remember, Sam.
No, just hold on. Honorable Kerry, I think you're not understanding my question or you don't have the answer. Because, yes, the regulations exist. The fund is being lent out and being repaid. What I'm asking is, who is managing it? Because there has to be someone managing it.
And I'm answering you, Sam. You're used to a place where people present papers to a committee. This committee interrogates you and decides because they don't like the look of your face.
Is there
will not give you lend. Today, Sam, some of the things you're doing, even on your computer, you have no idea what the back office is like. All you want is integrity of a system.
So who is behind the system?
As it sits right now, it is the property of a government. Because this money is coming out of Treasury. So the responsible the responsible entity as we speak right now is the Honorable Chelugui, who is the minister in this specific docket. So it means this is a government operation. And what we are trying to poke holes at is because we do not understand it. We are coming from a background.
I am asking questions. I'm not poking holes. And these are questions that anyone can ask.
So
those are not holes.
There is nothing opaque about a system that is based
Fred, what do you think about
on an automated system?
Honorable Kiari
and what I understand,
that's okay, Honorable Kiari. Let's listen.
Honorable Kiari is a script writer, and you know, he will take you round and round and round. The questions that some you have asked are the same questions that the public are asking, including Hustler themselves, because the management of this fund must be to a certain threshold that reveals the credibility and integrity of it. That is not coming out. It's not just about dispersing the funds. It's not about, you know, using mobile lender. No. I mean, a mobile platform, no.
It is.
It is going beyond just the mobile that you're holding. It is going beyond just the saving. How do the hustler access that saving that he has done? You are not answering that. The other thing you have said, the regulations are in place. Well, those regulations are in place, but there is a management body that must be in place to ensure that they implement part of that regulation. I don't have the answer for you, but I want to believe that you guys are struggling the same way those you believe to be criticizing are struggling. We know for sure that Kenyans need a place that they can access money easily and do their business
and better
their lives and affordably. But what you have offered is not achieving that purpose. It is until then that all these questions are answered and rectified and implemented, then Kenyans will be happy with that. The other issue that Kenyans have raised is the issue of M-Pesa PIN that people are inputting. Again, that is an issue that probably if you had the time, you would have told the public. But I am confident enough that the members of parliament will relook at all these issues.
Just hold on, Fred. So keying in your M-Pesa PIN or whatever mobile facility you have.
It's an issue that the public have raised, that why would we key in our M-Pesa PIN number while undergoing this process?
What is the risk?
I'm raising an issue from the public. That's what they have raised, because they believe the risk they believe is that they have been told before by M-Pesa providers that your PIN is your personal secret. Why would you keep?
And I'm asking you, what is the risk in your view?
If the public fear that probably there could be an issue,
Fred.
My issue with it would be that it's a form of data mining, maybe. That might be issue, because we are in an era of people can data mine.
Fred is.
But I was on Honorable Kiari, just hold on. I was on an issue that I was about to raise. No one would want this government to fail. In fact, as people who live in this country, we would want this government to succeed. But that does not stop us from criticizing some of the issues that we believe are not going right. This Hustler Fund was a promise. It has mutated all through, and I know even them, they're struggling to make it better. We hope that you make it better so that even some of us who are not in government can see now it is working. No one is criticizing for the sake of criticizing. People are raising issues. There are so many questions. And maybe it is an opportunity for Kiare, Koech, and the team to use some of these issues we are raising to perfect the fund so that it can be smooth.
Why are you leaving out Honorable Mbui? He also sits in Parliament.
Honorable Mbui is part of us, and he also raised the same questions.
No, he's not part of
What do you mean? He's a parliamentarian. Yes, but anyway,
are you trying to say that Honorable Koech today is in Kenya Kwanza? He's not. He's my deputy minority.
He's on his way.
all right. I want us to transition to the next area and spend as little time as possible. Honorable
But
Koech,
let's allay those fears, because no one is asking you for your M-Pesa PIN. In fact, the fact of the matter is that when you borrow, the money goes to your M-Pesa wallet.
Yes.
It's for you to ensure that it is going to your wallet. It is just, the PIN belongs to you, the wallet belongs to you. What you're doing is opening your safe with a PIN. Remember also, I was part of crafting the Kenya Privacy and Data Protection Bill in the last parliament, which has been billed as one of the most progressive data bills in the world. compared to even some of the finest, the GDPR of Europe. So we are cognizant of the fact that everyone's data has to be protected.
Okay.
The players the players in this whole borrowing affair is even mobile phone operators, mobile network operators. They would never expose Kenyans to a risk such as data mining.
Okay.
When you borrow, it will end up going to either your Airtel money or your M-Pesa wallet. So even the mobile telephone operators are actually one of the security guards against...
okay, I just wanted to
comment on this one.
Yeah.
That we are not against hustlers and Kenyans getting money, because it's a good thing.
Correct.
But I think what is most important, we want transparency in that process. Parliament has an opportunity, because this thing is not working on regulations, which means it's basically hanging on a thread, and it requires proper legislation. In the process of doing the legislation, I think we need to sort out some of these things. And I believe at the end of the day, we must ask ourselves, is government supposed to be doing business and competing with people that are taxpayers who are supposed to be paying taxes so that the government can be able to run its affairs? I think government needs to provide a conducive environment. And I think in the actual legislation, we'll try and bring that out.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to take a look at *254# and takes you to a place where you welcome to Hustler Fund, you register, you can also view the terms and conditions, or you can know more. Then after that, you're told that by accepting the terms and conditions on the Hustler Fund, you agree to your information being shared with the Hustler Fund. Then you can accept or decline. If you accept, then you go to the next level where you put the M-Pesa PIN. I believe this is a key so that the data that is within the M-Pesa platform can now be shared with the Hustler Fund to also be in a position to assess the loan limit that you should get. And your registration request has been received. Please wait for a confirmation message with the amount you qualify for within 2 hours.
What you didn't tell Fred is that within that platform, I as a user, I'm able to access my savings, because he's poking a hole and saying, how will the hustler be able to
access the full,
even on that platform?
The 30% or the full?
Yes.
The 70% or the 30%? Because there's pension and there's short-term.
Yes, you're not able, you're not able to access your pension up to until a certain point. There are laws that govern pension. But your savings, this is your property. But the revolution here, Sam, which need to be said, is that rolling out the Hustler Fund, as has been crafted, is going to save more than 2 times what NSSF is currently saving. This is setting the nation well on its way to becoming a saving nation. So let us, even as we are talking about...
You're now attempting to respond to the question that I asked earlier, but anyway, that's fine.